Hello, and welcome to my living room. I'm Kathleen Hershner. My parents were both high school teachers, and I remember when I was growing up, I used to say to them, I'm never going to be a teacher. I would never want to be a teacher. And the reason for me to say that was mainly because I didn't feel like they made enough money. And that was, of course, a teenager's obsession in the United States at that time. And I also got the feeling that they didn't really like being teachers. They never seemed to be really in love with the idea of teaching. But my guest who's here with me today, Andrés Simón Gil, is not only a teacher, but he loves being a teacher. And so I think it's going to hopefully change my outlook about teaching.
Yes.
Andrés, welcome to my living room.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
You are a primary school teacher,
yes,
which we call elementary school in the United States.
School, yes.
In Badajoz.
In Badajoz. Almendralejo.
Almendralejo. And you've come from the Badajoz region to be on TV with me today.
Yes.
I'm very honored that you would make this journey.
That was Alberto Alonso's fault.
Really?
Because
everything's his fault. I'll blame him for all of it.
He wrote me an email and he told me, hey, do you want to go to the TV? And I thought it was going to be a good idea to be here with you.
Well, I hope at the end of the 25 minutes you still feel that way.
Yeah.
I don't know. Were you on the radio with Alberto?
No, I didn't have the chance to go there because I think he's now in Granada. He's in Sierra Nevada.
Is he? He seems to get around a lot. Yeah. He's traveling with his TV show. I have to stay put. Well, people come to me. So I guess on the other hand, that's nice. But you and I were talking briefly about your career as a teacher. I've just met you. And I was telling you about my feeling about my parents not liking their job. And I think at the time when they graduated from university, there certainly weren't the amount of opportunities that there are in today's world. I mean, we didn't have computers, we didn't have IT, none of this existed. So your options were to be a teacher, for a woman to be a nurse or a teacher or secretary, and for men, you know, to be a businessman or be a teacher. So a lot of people became teachers who probably did not really want to be teachers.
No, but I mean, my father was a teacher, and then I spent my whole childhood in a school because my father worked a lot. He was the headmaster of the school.
Oh, really?
And then I spent...
In Extremadura?
No, in Granada.
In Granada.
In Granada.
Because you're originally from there.
And then I remember spending a lot of time at school. And
I guess you would.
And I ate at the school, and I spent all my childhood there. So I have quite good remembrances from that school.
So your memories from this time were not like mine in that as soon as school was over, I wanted to leave immediately.
No.
But because did you have a close relationship with your dad?
Yes.
So you liked hanging out with him
after school? And I remember that I played to be a teacher, and I take some cards and I put pass and not pass, and when I write those cards, I write them with mistakes on it. And then one of my teachers told me, "Oh, you have written this, and there's a mistake on it."
Did you make the mistakes on purpose?
I think so.
Well, I mean, maybe as a game, like to see if
No, perhaps I didn't know how to write well at that time.
Oh, so it was not by intention.
No.
You did not do it on purpose.
No.
Okay. Well, I suppose that whatever your dad did, he did a good job if he made you love education so much that you would want to hang out at school. I think that's not so typical with most kids. My parents were high school teachers, and then my stepfather was a college professor. And I remember the games that I used to play with him was that he'd bring home his tests that he would give for the students, and they were most of the time they were multiple choice, so that A, B, C, D, whatever. And I got to take the tests, and I felt like a big person because they were high school tests, but I just guessed.
But even if you may think that it's quite strange for me to want to be a teacher or to want to become a teacher.
Not strange, just not...
It's just, I feel like is there nothing else I could do? Because I feel like very, very... I mean, I love my work when I teach my children, because I can see how they are working, how they develop, how they gain the language, because it's quite difficult to teach in a primary school.
You teach English, don't you?
Yes, I teach English, yes.
Oh, yeah. So you're providing them with a much-needed skill and service, and also because your English is very, very, very good. This is a good example for them. You're not making a lot of mistakes.
Yes.
You've traveled a lot. I know you've lived in I think in England.
In England, yes. I've been in England several times.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think it's strange that you'd want to be a teacher, and I'm sure that there were other things you could have done. But what I think probably happens is that a lot of people go into teaching without having the burning desire to be a teacher.
Yes.
You know,
Perhaps.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe doctors feel that way too. I don't know. I don't want to know if that's the case. But I think my parents sort of fell into it, and then later began to appreciate it. My mom liked having the summers free. She said, "I'm a teacher because I only have to work for 9 months."
Yeah, but that's not a quite right thing to say, because people think or consider that we have a lot of holidays.
No.
But that's not true, because when we got home, we have to prepare the classes, and you're always thinking about your session and your kids, and you never stop working.
That's true. I mean, it's like any type of job, like a sales job or something where you have to be thinking about it or preparing for it all the time. When I first started teaching English, it was before I moved to Spain. And I remember telling somebody that they said, "How many hours are you teaching a week?" And I was like, "Well, I teach about 16 or 18 hours right now." And you know what they said to me? "Wow, that sounds like a pretty good job. A lot of free time there," because a normal work week is 40 hours. I'm like, "Wait a minute. You've obviously never been a teacher, because for every hour that you teach, you often have to prepare for an hour. And then it takes you maybe an hour to get to your class and home."
And even then, you don't know how your students are going to react, because you can prepare a very nice session with show and tell, and something happens that is not as you would like to happen, you know?
Well, it may not be the right lesson plan for that day or for that group of students. You never know. And you have to have like plan B, plan C, plan D,
that's it.
multiple choice.
Multiple choice. It's strange, because as you know, you have multiple choices in a day, and you never know how they are going to react.
Right. Well, because you're dealing with living creatures.
Yes.
As opposed to like being a person who goes to work on a computer or does IT work. I mean, it's fairly predictable in some ways. But when you're dealing with humans, like as a teacher or a doctor or a nurse or something like that, you have to deal with emotions, and you have to be a bit of a psychologist.
A psychologist.
I'll bet teachers often, especially teachers for young children, often feel like they're more psychologists than teachers.
We are everything. We are psychologists, we are doctors, we are parents. It's a very, very complete work.
And you're also, in my opinion, grossly underpaid.
Yes. We
I don't know if
we
it's
are paid peanuts, as you say.
Yeah, and you know what they say about getting paid peanuts? Pay peanuts, get monkeys.
Yes.
I mean, that's an old expression meaning you have to pay people what they're worth. And that's been a big problem in the States for many, many, many years, and especially during my parents' generation. Less in mine. When you're a foreigner teaching English as a second language, you do okay. But nobody's getting rich, and yet it's such an incredibly important occupation.
Yes.
You're having a lifelong effect on the lives of young people.
You are dealing with their future. You know, you are helping them to become better men or better women, in a sense.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a quite. You feel the pressure, because you know they are growing, and then you know if you do this, it may be not quite good for them, and then sometimes you have a lot of, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to,
that may be doubts, and you have to be so careful.
Yes.
You have to be so, because kids, you can say one thing to a child that could maybe depress them or hurt them, and they might hang on to that thought for a long, long time.
Or they misinterpreted you.
They could misinterpret something you say.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that the parents of the children that you teach, and of course I assume maybe they'll be listening to this and watching the show, I don't know, but if you can be candid with me, do you think they appreciate you as much as you would like them to?
Some of them yes, and some of them not. They don't consider my job as an important one. They just consider that I have to handle with the kids, and I get paid for that, and they have rights, but they have no obligations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They leave the kid in the school and they don't get as much worried as before, because in the past they were more concerned about education than today, I think.
You think so? Than today's parents?
Yes.
I think you're right, and many. I mean, I don't know. You would know the reality of this, but from what I've seen, it does seem as though parents use teachers as like disciplinarians and babysitters. Like, we're going to take them to school, and that's where they're going to be for 8 hours, whatever. And that any problems that they have, as far as disciplinary problems, the teacher gets to deal with that. And yet, those disciplinary problems are probably coming from the home. They probably have their roots at home. And I remember my mom complaining about this, about not being able to say what she wanted to say to the parents, or deal with the kids in a way that would be considered maybe legal
but
by today's standards.
I do not agree with that, because parents are not customers.
No,
you know
we're not dealing with a product.
Yes, we are not dealing with a product. I can say that your kid doesn't study, your kid doesn't do his homework or her homework, and she or he may say, oh no, my sister or my brother or he's very nice, and they don't see the reality behind that.
Right. Well, what do you think about this generation of children? I mean, when I was growing up in the United States, we were the baby boomers. Now, I was at the very end of the baby boom. In fact, I didn't even realize I was part of the baby boom, which was the post-World War II growth in population, until I was much older. And then after that, we had like the Gen Xers, and then the Gen Y. I mean, it was like every generation had its own name. And I read something that you'd written in the formulary about the neither nors.
Neither nor, yes.
Is that the new thing, or is that your own phrase?
Yes, but it's not my generation. It's the generation that is coming.
Kids. That is coming. The neither nors.
Sometimes I see them. They do not have perspective. They do not see themselves working in the future, because you know that we are going through a crisis.
Well, yes.
And then there's a lot of unemployment. And how are you going to convince a student to study? That's very difficult, because you don't get the things in a moment. The only things they want to take is money, very easy money. And then if you say to them, no, you have to study, you have to, as Vaughan said all the time in his course, you have to study a lot, you have to, and it's very difficult to convince in our society, in which money has a lot of value.
Yeah, and it's sort of like, from what you said earlier, it's like coming down to the responsibility of the teachers to convince the students of something that the parents should be convincing the students of, and not just the parents. I'm not beating up on parents today, but also society. To let these kids know, hey, let me tell you, like my mom used to say to me, let me tell you, sister, there's a reason why they call it work and not vacation.
No vacation.
And there's a reason, she always used to say, there's a reason why it's a 4-letter word. A 4-letter word in English is a euphemism for a swear word.
A swear word.
Because swear words often are 4 letters long. But it's true that society we're breeding a generation of laissez-faire, as you would say, neither nor, neither job, nor neither education nor job.
Neither education nor work.
Nor work.
Nor work.
And boy, they're going to have a real harsh awakening when they are 20, 21.
And who is going to pay the taxes?
We are.
We are going.
Yes, we get to pay for the product that we are creating now. I mean, obviously there are exceptions to this, but what you've seen in your work as a teacher, Andrés, is that this is kind of the direction we're going. What can we do what can you do to stop it? I mean, what do you do as a teacher to try to have an influence on it?
To convince the family that the way we are dealing now is not the right. We are not on the right direction.
Yeah, we're not on the right path.
Or we are not on the right path.
Yeah. Are they defensive when you say something like this? Like, oh no, my little Juan, he's a little angel.
Yes, like that.
Really?
Yes.
My parents were the opposite, because they were teachers. if the teacher in the parent-teacher conference said something negative about me, my mom would come home and say, all right, you better get your act together now. And even if it wasn't my fault, even if the teacher was saying something that maybe wasn't accurate, my mom just assumed that I was at fault. And I'm actually glad that she was like that.
Yes,
it helped me.
It has to be that way, because if not, what are we going to do with them?
Well, we need them.
We need them.
Because when you and I are old, no matter what country we're living in, we need these next generations to be our next leaders, next politicians. You know, wonder how people who are in their 80s and 90s now feel about the young politicians, you know, people in their 40s, 50s. I wonder if they feel confident in their abilities in the way that they might have with their leadership of decades ago.
Well, perhaps we are over generalizing.
Well, of course we are. We're generalizing totally.
But I'm very worried about the current situation, because I don't see them worried about. You know, they are just relaxed. I'm having fun, but they are not thinking in the future.
Right.
And
it's
perhaps,
almost like they don't think the future is really going to happen to them.
Yes.
They're in a state of like a suspended animation. Do you think the computer age is to blame for much of this?
No.
You don't.
No.
It'd be easy to blame it.
Well,
but
there is some blame, because, for instance, they do not read as much.
No.
They do not.
Well, they read, but they read in a different way. They read online.
The problem is that they do not spend so much time with the parents, because the father works, the mother works, and they have to spend all the time at school. And when they go to their houses, they have no time to have a talk with their fathers or with their mothers. And there's no conversation between them. So they don't know if they do their homework. They don't know what is going on at school. It's difficult. It's a very difficult situation.
Well, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about my own experience, and that my parents were busy and both worked, always. And that was the beginning of that was the first generation, I think, where children did start spending a lot less time with the parents. But it wasn't that so much that reality as it was my parents' attitude that helped us to stay on track. Because I spent most of my childhood in school, like you. I liked it. I went to school early in the morning, because I was involved in like sports stuff, and we always had them before school. And then after school, I was involved in theater and plays and things like that. And I wasn't a great student. I wasn't like a super smart kid, but I enjoyed being there. And we didn't have computers. So there was no running home to, you know, connect with my friends on the internet. We didn't have mobile phones, obviously.
But what it has changed is the attitude, you know? Even though you weren't a good student, your parents were there to tell you, hey, be careful, you have to study.
Yeah.
But now, the students do not feel this pressure.
They're not getting it from the parents.
Yes.
Is that the main problem?
Yes, I think so.
Well, what could you do as a teacher? What could we do as members of society to convince these people, hey, quit spoiling your kids and make them get jobs? One thing I noticed when I first came to Spain that really surprised me, I'm sure I'm going to offend some people.
Yes.
But that's my...
Be careful.
That's my specialty. And I said this to one of my Spanish friends, I said, it seems to me as though teenagers don't work here. And she said, no. The parents think that that's beneath them. Like, no, teenagers do not work. I'm like, what? She goes, no, it's very rare for a Spanish teenager from a middle-class family, which makes up most of the population, to have a job. And I'm like, you're kidding me, right?
Kidding me.
She goes, no. And my friend had children, and he said, my wife would never let our kids work. I said, boy, it is the exact opposite in the United States of America. My parents couldn't wait for us to start working, and not because we needed the money. We didn't need, I mean, they wanted us to learn the ethics of working. I had a job from the time I was 14, babysitting, and then I went to work at McDonald's. I mean, you know, we had jobs.
But you don't have to work, just to have some responsibility, you know?
Well, if you're not going to work, at least have responsibility to getting good grades.
Yes.
I mean, I suppose that the era that I grew up in was the era of working, where people wanted their kids to work, and it was a very positive thing. But now maybe it's learning. Like kids should go perhaps to after-school classes to improve their English or to whatever.
It's quite difficult because you know that now in our days you need much more preparation to get a job.
It's more competitive than it was. So what,
And you have to study not only English, but you have to study maths, you have to know how to write. Even your handwriting is...
I saw something on the internet, of all places today. I watch online news. I saw something about in the United States, they're starting to be concerned that children don't write well anymore.
Yes.
Like they can't write legibly.
Yes.
Like you cannot read.
Yes. That's
because
they're used to doing everything on the computer.
Or this,
or
like they're going to have arthritis in their thumbs from texting.
There's also a sentence that I've written on my file that is to spare the rod and spoil the child.
Yeah.
And
it's an old saying.
Yes, and I completely agree. I agree with that. That sentence
to spare means to leave it out. To spare, if you spare the rod,
yeah, but not in that sense.
No.
Not in that sense. You don't have to hit the children.
No.
It's not
My parents did.
Yeah, and nothing happened. But now you don't have to hit them. It's just that they know that you are there, and that if you say something, that's right. If they put you under, I mean, if they don't take into account what you are telling them,
they don't respect you,
or they do not respect you, then how are you going to teach them?
Financially.
Not only financially.
And freedom, with freedom and finance. You know, I grew up in the era where it was common to spank children and slap them, and we had a lot of physical discipline. But I learned later, when I was a teenager, that it was the financial and the lack of personal freedoms that really was the thing that motivated me.
Yeah, but we have come from one side to the other. But now, a children can sue you if he wants.
Yeah. I suppose that was never an option in my day. But I suppose you're right, that kids can say, Mommy hit me, boy.
And your word has the same value than his word.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that amazing that the court would consider the validity of a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old to be the same as an adult who obviously loves the child and wants the best for them? Because you know how kids can be.
Yes.
I mean, we all do. I suppose we were all like that as well.
They can be very bad if they want.
Yes, they can.
Some of them.
Yeah. I suppose you have a lot of really good students, though.
Yes.
So there are always those shining stars.
No, yes.
In every galaxy.
I'm not talking so bad about them because they are bad. No, I'm talking about in general. What I see is not so much in primary school. I see this thing in secondary school.
In high school.
Or high school.
Yeah. I think that's the age when rebellion starts to come into play and maybe kids are at their worst. I like teenagers a lot. I prefer them to small children, but I'm a bit weird in that respect. Do you work Andrés, do you work in the public system or in the private system?
Yes, in the public system.
And do you think it's a better system, or are there just advantages and disadvantages to both?
No, for me, the public system is the same, even if we don't have so many resources, because we would like to have much more resources.
Yeah, which costs money.
Yes, which costs money. But the people who are working in the public system has passed a very difficult test to become a teacher, and as you told before, you have to have the value and the attitude. It's more the attitude.
The motivation to be a teacher.
Yes.
My friends who have kids that have small children, they prefer them to go to public school. They said that these are the schools that we really want our kids to go to, where they have to work harder. We're out of time.
Oh.
If you can believe it.
Oh, I can't believe it.
Andrés Gil.
Yes.
I love your last name. It's been really nice talking to you. I feel like I'm going to have a different opinion now when I see kids on the street. Are you doing your homework today, young man?
Yes.
Well, I hope your kids get to watch this program.
We need your help.
Well, I'll try to give it to you.
Yeah.
And I hope you've enjoyed our conversation today. Me and Andrés have been talking about all the things that are wrong and right in school. We'll be back with more interesting conversations with you soon in my living room. Adios. Bye-bye.